She's not my aunt. A little girl's silent plea in a snowbound diner. A storm traps everyone inside. A biker sees her sign and makes a call that will unleash a lockdown, a confrontation, and change all their lives forever. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The wind screamed against the windows of the Wyoming Stop Diner, a lonely box of light off Highway 287. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of coffee and fried food. A sudden, brutal snowstorm had trapped a handful of people. Truckers, a family, a few locals, and a group of bikers in leather cuts with a patch that read Knights of the Asphalt. At a booth by the window, a woman named Jennifer was fussing over a little girl with curly hair. "Eat your fries, Lucy, sweetie," Jennifer said, her voice too high, too sweet. The girl, maybe 6, just pushed the food around her plate. She didn't speak. At the counter, a man named David sat alone. He was big, with a beard and calm eyes. His leather cut marked him as the president of the Knights. He was finishing his pie, watching the room without seeming to. He saw the woman and the girl. Something was wrong. Jennifer's smile didn't reach her eyes. She held Lucy's wrist under the table, not her hand. David got up to pay his bill at the register. As he passed their booth, Jennifer was looking for something in her big purse. In that second, the little girl, Lucy, turned her head. Her eyes locked on David's. Her small hands came up from her lap. She didn't wave. She made shapes with her fingers, fast and clear. David knew sign language. His sister was deaf. The girl signed HELPSHEISNOTMYAUNT. A cold shock hit David harder than the storm outside. He gave a tiny, almost invisible nod. Lucy put her hands down just as Jennifer looked up. "All good, baby?" Jennifer asked, her grip tightening on Lucy's wrist. Lucy nodded, staring at her lap. David walked to the register, his mind racing. He pulled out his phone, no signal. The storm had killed all power and towers. He looked outside, white nothingness. They were all stuck. And that meant the woman was stuck too, but for how long? He needed to keep her here. He needed to get a message out. He saw his man, Paul, a big biker with a kind face, sitting with a trucker named Mark. They were playing cards. David caught Paul's eye. He subtly tapped his own ear, then pointed his chin toward the back of the diner. It was their sign for trouble. Listen up. David walked to the diner's front door and shoved it open. Snow blasted him. He fought his way to his big touring bike, but more importantly, he fought his way to the 18-wheeler parked next to it. Most truckers had CB radios that could work when phones didn't. He climbed into the truck's passenger side. The driver, the man named Mark, was still inside. David grabbed the CB mic. He switched to a channel he knew his club monitored for emergencies. Asphalt base, this is King David, do you copy? Over, static. He tried again, his voice urgent. I'm at the Wyoming stop, mile marker 88. I have a code amber, I repeat code amber. A little girl trafficked, woman posing as family. We are storm locked. Need a full highway lockdown on 287 from mile 85 to 93. No one gets in or out. Use the tow trucks, use the road crew, call the sheriff you have in your pocket. Do it now. Over. A voice crackled back. King David copy, code amber confirmed, lockdown in 15, we'll move the earth, stay put, asphalt base out. David put the mic back. He sat for a second in the cold, thinking of his sister, then he went back into the diner. Inside, Jennifer was zipping Lucy into a coat. The snow is lighter, we have to go, your mommy is so worried, she said loudly. Lucy shook her head, her eyes wide with panic. "Ma'am, that's the calm before the worst part," said the waitress, a no-nonsense woman named Stella. "You go out there, you'll end up in a ditch." "I know these roads," Jennifer snapped. David walked over, blocking the path to the door. He was a wall of a man. "The waitress is right. Sheriff just announced on the CB. Road is officially closed. No one moves for at least 2 hours." "How do you know?" Jennifer challenged, her face pale. "Truckers CB, public banned. Everyone heard it," David said calmly, looking at Mark the trucker, who gave a firm nod. Jennifer looked around. The other patrons, a retired couple named James and Elena, the trucker, the other bikers, all nodded in agreement. She was outnumbered. She forced a smile. Of course, safety first. She pulled Lucy back to the booth, her nails digging into the little girl's arm. 20 tense minutes passed. The wind roared louder. Then new sounds joined the storm, not plows, the deep growl of motorcycles and the rumble of heavy SUVs. Headlights cut through the snow surrounding the diner. David allowed himself to breathe. The door opened. 3 more of his men walked in, covered in snow and ice. His vice president, a sharp-eyed man named Marcus, went straight to the counter. Coffee, Stella, black, hell of a night to ride. One biker, called Rook, sat by the front door. Another, Tiny, leaned against the hallway to the back exit. The diner was now quietly, completely sealed. Jennifer was sweating. She kept whispering into a dead phone. Lucy watched the bikers, then looked at David. He winked at her. A tiny, brave smile touched her lips. The retired man, James, tried to lighten the mood. Quite a gathering for a snow day. Marcus grinned, sipping his coffee. Just making sure our president doesn't do anything stupid like ride home. Club looks after its own. He glanced at Jennifer. Family should always look after family, don't you think? Jennifer stood up so fast her chair scraped. We're leaving. Now, I don't care about the rules. Rook didn't get up from his chair by the door. He just stretched his legs out, blocking the way. Can't let you do that, ma'am, for your own safety. You can't hold me here, she screamed. Right then, red and blue lights flashed outside. A county sheriff's SUV and 2 highway patrol cars slid to a stop next to the bikes. The sheriff, a man named O'Connell who had a long, understanding history with the Knights, walked in with 2 troopers. Got a very interesting call, Sheriff O'Connell said, his eyes scanning the room. Something about a child in possible danger. He looked at Jennifer and Lucy. Ma'am, is this your child? She's my niece, Jennifer said, her voice shaking. Lucy broke free. She ran to David and hid behind his legs. Then she peeked out and her hands started flying. SHEIASABADLADYMYMISROSCMYMOMISJSSICASHETOKMEFROMTHK. The room went quiet. Everyone understood. Jennifer bolted, not for the front, but for the kitchen. Tiny simply unfolded his arms and she ran right into his chest, falling backward. Sheriff O'Connell was on her, putting her in cuffs. David knelt down. Rose, is that your name? The little girl nodded, tears falling. Your mom is Jessica? Another nod. We're going to call her right now. Using the sheriff's radio, they got a call through to the police department in Laramie, where a frantic woman named Jessica had reported her daughter, Rose, missing the day before. When Jessica's voice came through the radio speaker, crying, Rose, baby, talk to me. Rose sobbed, Mommy, I want to come home. The storm still raged, but the mood in the diner shifted. The Knights bought everyone pie. Stella found an old coloring book and crayons for Rose. She sat coloring at the counter, wrapped in David's cut, which was gigantic on her. The sheriff took Jennifer away. A social worker was called, but they were stuck miles away. An hour later, the snow finally slowed to flurries. The social worker arrived, but there was a problem. Jessica's car had broken down trying to get to the diner. She was stranded at a gas station 20 miles away. David looked at Marcus. We finished the run. Marcus nodded. Knights deliver. So as the sun tried to break through the gray clouds, a strange parade left the Wyoming stop. A sheriff's car led, then the social worker's car, followed by 6 big motorcycles and 2 club SUVs. Rose, safe and warm, rode in the front seat of David's SUV, holding the coloring book. They found Jessica at the fill-her-up station. She was a young woman with red, tear-streaked eyes. When Rose jumped out of the SUV and yelled, Mommy, Jessica crumbled to her knees, catching her daughter in a hug that seemed to melt all the fear and snow away. Jessica stood up, holding Rose tight. She walked over to David, who had stayed by his truck. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered, her voice raw. They told me what she did, what you did. David just smiled. She's the brave one, smart too. Jessica managed a shaky smile back. She is, thank you. She looked at the line of bikers. these rough, bearded men who had become unlikely angels. Thank you, all of you. The knights nodded back, a gruff but gentle chorus of "You're welcome, ma'am." The social worker, a kind-faced woman named Laura, did her paperwork right there in the gas station office. Everything checked out. Rose was safe, back where she belonged. Jessica had no way home. Her car was dead, and a tow truck would be ours. David didn't even hesitate. "We'll give you a ride." "Where to?" "Just to our apartment in Laramie. It's not far," Jessica said, still clutching Rose. "But I can't ask you to." "You didn't ask," Marcus said, already directing the other knights. "Rook, Tiny, you ride Sweep. We'll take the main road. Sheriff, you mind running a courtesy escort partway?" Sheriff O'Connell grinned. "For this, I'll take you to the city limits myself." So the caravan reformed. This time, Jessica and Rose sat in the back of David's warm SUV, wrapped in blankets the club kept for emergencies. Rose fell asleep almost instantly, her head in her mother's lap. Jessica stared out the window at the passing bikers, her expression a mix of awe and exhaustion. The ride to Laramie was quiet. The world was hushed under a thick blanket of snow, glittering under the now clear sky. They pulled up to a modest apartment complex. David carried the sleeping Rose inside, while Jessica fumbled with her keys. The apartment was small and warm, filled with toys and books. David laid Rose gently on the couch. Jessica covered her with a quilt, kissing her forehead. In the tiny kitchen, Jessica turned to David. Can I make you some coffee? It's the least I can do." David saw the shock was wearing off, leaving behind a trembling fatigue. "Sure, that'd be good." She made coffee. They sat at the small table. The other knights waited downstairs, giving them space. "It was at the park," Jessica said suddenly, her hands wrapped around her mug. "I turned my back for 1 second to tie my son's shoe. My 3-year-old Liam, he's with a neighbor, and she was just gone. Jennifer, or whatever her name is, was just gone with her. The police said, without witnesses it was hard. They thought maybe Rose had just wandered off." A tear slipped down her cheek. I knew." David listened, his usual tough demeanor softened. Rose knew how to sign for help. That saved her. "Her grandfather is deaf. She's been signing since she could talk," Jessica said, a flicker of pride in her eyes. She looked at David. "How did you know?" "My sister," he said simply. "She's deaf. Taught all of us in the club the basics. Never thought I'd use it like this." They talked a little longer. David learned Jessica worked as a medical coder, that she was a single mom, that she was tougher than she looked. He told her about the club, not the scary rumors, but the reality, a brotherhood that ran legitimate trucking and repair businesses, that looked after their own, and sometimes, when they saw wrong, they stepped in. There was a charged silence between them, not romantic, not yet, but a deep, recognizing look. Two people who had just lived through a storm, both literal and emotional. He saw her strength. She saw his honor beneath the leather and scars. Downstairs, the other knights were getting restless. Paul had bought hot chocolates from a nearby convenience store for everyone. Marcus was on the phone, calmly directing the dismantling of the highway lockdown now that the situation was resolved. "Tell the road crew we owe them one, a big one." Back upstairs, David stood to leave. "You'll be okay." Jessica nodded. "Thanks to you, all of you." She walked him to the door. Will there be trouble for you for what you did?" David gave a half smile. "The sheriff and I have an understanding. He hates traffickers more than he dislikes bikers. We just helped with community outreach." He pulled a card from his wallet. It was for asphalt trucking and repair. His name was on it. "If you need anything, a real tow truck or anything." She took the card, their fingers brushing. "Thank you, David." He nodded and walked out, joining his men. The roar of the motorcycles starting up filled the cold air. As they pulled away, David looked back once. Jessica was standing in her doorway, watching them go, the card still in her hand. The next few days were a blur of club business and legal follow-up. Jennifer's real name was Diane Price, a woman connected to a small-time trafficking ring moving kids across state lines. The information the knights provided, and Rose's positive ID, broke the case wide open. Sheriff O'Connell made sure the club's name was kept quietly out of the official reports, credited only as concerned citizens. A week after the storm, David was at the club's garage, the Wolf's Den garage, elbow deep in a Harley engine. The bell on the door jingled. He looked up, wiping his hands on a rag. It was Jessica. She had Rose by the hand, and a smaller boy, Liam, perched on her hip. She looked nervous but determined. "Hi," she said. "Hi," David replied, surprised. He walked over, his boots loud on the concrete floor. Other club members in the garage paused, watching with friendly curiosity. I brought these." Jessica held out a large cardboard box. "It's cookies, a lot of cookies, and a thank you card from Rose." Rose smiled shyly and held up a brightly colored drawing. It showed a bunch of big, black smiling motorcycles surrounding a little girl. One bike had a crown on it. David's heart did a funny little flip. "This is amazing, Rose, thank you," he said, taking the drawing carefully. He looked at Jessica. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," she said. "And Liam's birthday is next weekend, at Chuck E. Cheese. I know it's not your scene at all, but Rose wanted to know if you'd come. Maybe some of the guys. She thinks you're superheroes." David blinked. He looked at the hopeful faces of the two kids, then at Jessica's warm, tentative smile. He glanced over at Marcus, who was pretending to polish a chrome fender but was grinning widely. "Chuck E. Cheese," David said slowly, as if tasting the words. He looked back at Jessica. "You sure you want a bunch of bikers at a kid's birthday party?" "It would be the safest Chuck E. Cheese in history," she said, and they both laughed. "We'll be there," David said. "Just tell us the time." The party was, by all accounts, legendary. 6 large, bearded, tattooed bikers in jeans and clean club t-shirts arrived at the chaotic pizza palace. They didn't drink. They played skee-ball. They won an absurd number of tickets. Tiny, the giant, carefully helped little kids climb into the play tubes. Marcus dominated the basketball game. David spent most of his time at the table with Jessica, talking easily, while Paul let Rose and Liam win racing games. It was a picture no one would expect. These hardened men, laughing and surrounded by shrieking, sugar-hyped children. They were gentle giants, and David couldn't take his eyes off Jessica, who looked more relaxed and happy than he'd ever seen her. After the party, as they walked Jessica and the kids to her car, she turned to him. "That wasn't so bad, was it?" "It was the best ops mission we've ever run," David deadpanned, making her laugh. Maybe we could do something without the cheese and the giant mouse next time," she ventured. "Just coffee." David smiled. "I'd like that." Their first real date was simple, coffee that turned into dinner. They talked for hours. He learned about her dreams of going back to school. She learned about his past, his code, his love for the open road, and his loyalty to his brothers. The chemistry was undeniable, a slow, warm burn that felt as real as the steel of his bike. One evening, a month later, David was seeing Jessica at her apartment door after a movie. Rose and Liam were asleep inside. The hallway was quiet. "I had a good time," Jessica whispered, looking up at him. "Me too," David said. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their kiss was soft, deep, and full of a promise that had started in a snowstorm. Things weren't always simple. Jessica's friends were wary. Some of the older club members wondered if David was getting distracted. But David made it clear, his club was his family, but Jessica and her kids were becoming his heart. He protected them fiercely, but quietly. A better security system for her apartment, installed by the club's tech guy. A discreet escort for her night classes, provided by a brother riding nearby. The club grew to accept it. They saw how Jessica didn't try to change David, she understood his world. And they saw how David was happier, calmer. Rose and Liam started calling the garage Uncle David's workshop and were frequent, doted-on visitors. One night, the club had a big barbecue at their compound outside town. Jessica and the kids were there. Music played, food was eaten. Rose was riding on Tiny's shoulders. Liam was trying to learn to arm wrestle with Paul. Jessica stood with David by the fence, watching the sunset paint the sky in oranges and purples. She leaned her head against his shoulder. "You know," she said softly, "I used to be scared of storms. Now I just think of that diner and you." David put his arm around her, pulling her close. "That storm was the best thing that ever blew into my life," he said. He looked down at her, his expression serious. "I love you, Jessica, and those kids." Her eyes filled with happy tears. "I love you too, David." It wasn't a fairy tale, it was better. It was real. It was built on a silent cry for help in a noisy diner, answered by a man who understood, backed by a brotherhood that moved mountains in a snowstorm. It was coffee and Chuck E. Cheese and hard conversations and easy laughter. It was a love story that began not with a meeting, but with a rescue. And for David, the president of the Knights of the Asphalt, protecting his new family became the most important run of his life. Diane Price was in custody, but the network she worked for was not. A week after the barbecue, David got a late-night call from Sheriff O'Connell. "We hit a wall," the sheriff said, his voice grim. "Diane, not talking. The leads she gave us are dead ends. The people she worked for know we're looking. And David, they know who interrupted their transaction." A cold dread settled in David's gut. "Are my people in danger?" "Not just your people," O'Connell said. "They know the girl was returned to her mother. They have long memories and they don't like loose ends. Watch your back, and watch Jessica." David didn't waste a second. He called an immediate club meeting at the garage. The mood was dark and serious. "We have a problem," David told his brothers, gathered around the pool table. "The people who took Rose aren't happy we messed up their business. They might come looking." Marcus cracked his knuckles. "Let them come, we'll be waiting." "It's not just us," David said, his voice low. "It's Jessica, it's the kids." The club fell silent. They all knew what that meant. The Knights had rules. They didn't involve civilians in club wars, but Jessica and the kids weren't just civilians anymore. They were under the club's protection. They were family. A plan was formed. It was quiet, and it was thorough. Paul, who was the best with tech, installed hidden cameras and motion sensors at Jessica's apartment the next day, under the guise of upgrading the security system he'd given her. Rook and another brother, a quiet man named Leo, began taking shifts in an unmarked van down the street, keeping watch. The patrols were invisible to Jessica and the kids, but they were always there. David tried to keep things normal. He took Jessica out to dinner. He helped Rose with a school project about community helpers. She insisted on doing it about bikers, much to her teacher's confusion. But he was constantly alert, his eyes scanning every parking lot, every face in a crowd. The threat made itself known 2 weeks later. It wasn't a dramatic attack. It was a whisper. Jessica came home from work to find a single, long-stemmed black rose left on her doorstep. No note, just the rose. She called David, her voice trying to stay calm. He was there in 5 minutes. He examined the rose, his face a stone mask. "You and the kids are packing a bag. You're staying at the compound tonight." The club's compound was a secured property outside town with a high fence, cameras, and a guard dog named Duke. Jessica's apartment wasn't safe. At the compound, the club women, the wives and girlfriends of the members, welcomed Jessica and the kids. They were tough, kind women who knew the score. They distracted Rose and Liam with cookies and movies in the main rec room. In the club's meeting room, the officers were furious. "A black rose, that's a message, a threat. They're telling us they can get to her," Marcus growled. "We need to draw them out," David said. "We can't live like this, waiting. We need to finish this." They set a trap. They made it look like Jessica was returning to her normal routine. She went back to her apartment, but she was never alone. A club brother was always nearby, hidden. David moved his bike to her apartment lot and left it there, a clear sign he was around. The bait was taken. 3 nights after the rose appeared, a dark sedan with tinted windows cruised slowly past Jessica's building. It circled the block twice. Inside the van, Rook radioed David, who was inside the apartment. "We have eyes on the target, 2 males in the car. They're casing the place." David looked at Jessica. "Stay inside. Do not come out no matter what you hear." He kissed her forehead, a hard, quick kiss full of promise. Then he walked out the front door alone. He stood under the porch light, a clear target, and lit a cigarette. He stared directly at the parked sedan down the street. The car's engine revved. It sped towards him, then screeched to a halt at the curb. The passenger window rolled down. A man with a thin face and cold eyes leaned out. "You the biker who cost us a lot of money?" he sneered. David took a slow drag of his cigarette. "I'm the man who protected a little girl. You got a problem with that?" "We got a problem with you sticking your nose where it doesn't belong," the driver said, his voice rough. "This is your only warning. Walk away from the woman and the kids, or next time it won't be a flower." David dropped his cigarette, crushing it under his boot. He smiled, a dangerous, mirthless smile. "You delivered your message. Now get off my property." "Your property?" the passenger laughed, but his laugh died as headlights flicked on all around them. From the alley, Marcus and Tiny emerged on their bikes. From behind a neighboring building, Paul and Leo stepped out. The van's doors slid open, and Rook stepped out, holding a large police-style flashlight. The men in the car were surrounded. They hadn't seen any of it. "You think your little bike club scares us?" the driver blustered, but his voice shook. David walked slowly to the car. He leaned down, his face close to the window. "This isn't a bike club. This is a family, and you threatened my family. The sheriff is on his way. You can talk to him, or you can talk to us, your choice." The fight went out of them. They were small-time muscle, not prepared for an organized, military-style response. When Sheriff O'Connell arrived minutes later, he found the two men sitting meekly on the curb, surrounded by silent bikers. The black rose was tucked in the driver's shirt pocket. "Well, well," O'Connell said, "look what the cat dragged in." He recognized them as known associates of a bigger fish in Denver. With the attempted intimidation charge and the threat of the night's testimony, the two men were eager to deal. They gave up their boss's name in exchange for lighter charges. It was the break the sheriff needed. The Denver operation was raided the following week. The trail that had started with a little girl's hands in a Wyoming diner led to the arrest of a half-dozen people. The immediate threat was over. A month later, under a warm summer sky, the Knights of the Asphalt threw a huge party at their compound. It was a celebration of the end of the threat, of family, of survival. Music blasted, grills smoked, and kids ran everywhere. In the middle of it all, David stood on the porch of the main clubhouse. He raised a hand for quiet. The music was turned down. "Brothers," he said, his voice carrying, "family." He looked at Jessica, who was holding Liam, with Rose standing close by. "A while back, we made a promise to protect our own, to stand for what's right even when it's hard. That promise brought us more than we expected. It brought us new family." He stepped down and walked over to Jessica. He took her hand. Then he knelt down on one knee, right there in the dust and the grass, in front of his entire club and her children. The crowd went utterly silent. David pulled a small box from his pocket. He opened it. Inside was a simple, strong silver ring. "Jessica," he said, his voice thick but clear, "you and Rose and Liam, you're my heart. You're my peace after the storm. Will you marry me? Will you let me be your husband and their dad forever?" Jessica was crying, nodding before he even finished. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "yes." Rose jumped up and down, clapping. Liam yelled, "Yay, Uncle David." The compound erupted in cheers, the roar of approval from the bikers louder than any motorcycle. David slid the ring on Jessica's finger and stood, sweeping her into a kiss as his brothers whooped and hollered. Later, as fireworks lit up the night sky, courtesy of Paul's questionable pyrotechnic skills, David held Jessica close. "It's not gonna be a normal life," he said into her hair. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the sparkling lights. "It was a biker in a diner who gave me back my life. Normal is overrated." Thank you for riding with us through this story. Would you have had the courage to step in like David did? Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Are you in a snowy place like Wyoming or somewhere warm? Let us know in the comments below.